Salam alaikum. Thank you for coming. I think it might be best if you can sign in, and then you can take one of the packets that's there. There's also some fun information that you can take, some notebooks and some bookmarks if you would like. And what I will do is I'm going to start, after you get that, I'm going to start a video. And in this video, you're going to hear from the parents who foster in our county. You're going to hear from some of the staff members who train the parents. And the last 15 minutes, you're going to hear from the children who have been in our county under our system, and sort of a testimonial of what the experience has been for them. And when we finish this video, we're going to go over all the information that you have in this packet that you're going to pick up, and I'm going to walk you through the process of what it's like to foster, what are the steps, what are the requirements, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So if you want to go ahead and get a packet, and I'll get the video ready while you do that.
Have you ever thought about changing a child's life? A little piece of your world can make a world of difference in theirs. There are children in Fairfax County whose worlds have been turned upside down. Kids who need to feel safe during difficult times. Due to abuse or neglect, they need a foster home. They need you. Foster care is when children are temporarily placed outside of their current home. This may occur as a result of abuse, neglect, or other circumstances that put the child at risk, or when parents decide they cannot currently care for their child. Who are these children in need?
We have children in foster care from infancy entering through 17 years old. We also have children who are in our custody at 18 years old. The large majority of our population of children in foster care tend to be adolescents. That tends to be a nationwide trend, and it happens to be a crisis for most public agencies trying to find permanence for our older youth. We tend to get sibling groups, receive them into our custody, and it's very important and critical that we try to place them together, which is also a very big difficulty we have. We have children of different ethnic and religious backgrounds. That is also part of the matching process. It is not the only piece that we're trying to match, but it is a part of it as well.
They're all different. They're all unique, and they're all just wonderful. They all have problems in their background that they have to overcome, and that's the one thing that they share. And they don't always know what a normal life with a normal dad and a normal mom looks like, and so we try to provide that for them.
In order to become a foster parent, first you must meet the basic criteria. You must be 18 years of age or older. You can be married, single, or divorced. You can work full-time, part-time, or stay at home. You can own your home or live in an apartment.
I've always had children around me, even when I was a teenager. If someone in my family had a child, I was the babysitter. I lived in a building and I babysat everybody's children in the building. I always said one day I was going to have 10 children and live on a farm. I didn't get to the farm and I didn't have 10 children, but I guess these children are my children I didn't have.
Most importantly, you need to have time and love to give a child in need. So let's walk through the process.
The first step of the process in becoming a foster and adopted parent is to come to our information meetings, which are held the second Monday of every month. When you're at this informational meeting, we will ask you to fill out a registration form of your initial interest and your contact information. And from that, one of the trainers will follow up with you to talk with you over the phone about your interest and talk more about the needs of our program. And we'll schedule a time to come out to your home, talk more about the process, see whether the child would be staying in your home, and go over paperwork, including background checks. In Fairfax County, we hold approximately 7 trainings a year. It is a 30-hour program, and in this training session, we'll be giving you information about the process, what are the issues that the children are dealing with. We're educating you about trauma and the impact on development and some of the behaviors you might see in your home. You'll have homework assignments that are about you. The purpose of that is to get to know you and help you see yourself so that we can match your strengths with the needs of a child. We compile this information into a document called a mutual family assessment. Sometimes people refer to it as a home study. The idea behind that is it's a mutual decision where you're deciding if we're right for you and we're deciding if you're right for our children. So when we've created this document, we're using this as a tool to match you. So we will have this within our agency when we are aware of a child that is coming into our custody and they have a certain set of needs, and we're looking at your skill set so we can make a successful match from the beginning of the process.
Once approved, you could receive a call about a child at any time.
So when our placement coordinators are informed about the possibility of a child coming into our custody, they begin searching for a family right away. And this placement could occur in an emergency situation, or it might take a few days in order for them to go through the court process. So typically, however, we try to educate our families to be ready to make a decision rather quickly.
If they called and they had a 6-month-old, like, okay, I don't know if we can handle that, but anyway, so we said yes. And 4 hours later, they brought the child to our door. We had him, his name was Manny, we had him for 6 months. And he was able to go back with his mom after that.
Yeah, the fun thing about the 4-hour leeway time with only having a 16-year-old child to get a 6-month-old, we had nothing for babies. So we reached out to the closet, which was one of the resources, and they got us all connected with all infant items.
Fairfax County offers many varieties of support to foster families. This includes reimbursement for room, board, clothing, and other related expenses, ongoing training and support through workshops and social events, medical and dental care, and other services the child may need, such as daycare, summer camp, school supplies, and enrichment activities.
And so one of the most important things I think we do for foster families is match them with a resource worker. And the role of that resource worker is really to support that family in their new role as a foster parent. Foster parenting is very rewarding, but it can be very challenging. It's challenging working with this system. You have a lot of people that you have to interact with. You have a lot of people coming in and out of your home. And we really do consider our foster families to be part of a team. So you're working with guardian ad litems, and you're working with county attorneys, and you're working with the school system. You're working with therapists. You're working with the specialist that works with the child. But foster families need support too.
First of all, there's a worker for the child. So she's wonderful. And then there's one also for us. So anything that we may need, financially, emotionally, if we need counselors or anything along that line.
I have been fortunate enough to have supported social workers that worked with me, CASA workers that were supportive. So it's been pretty smooth.
Our greatest need is for families who are willing to foster older youth or sibling groups. We also need families willing to both foster and adopt a child or sibling group, and families willing to provide short-term emergency care.
As foster parents, you can decide what type of children you are willing to open your home to. For us, not only bilingual, but we also decided that we can take special needs kids, not only sibling groups, but any type of special needs, whether that they might need assistance with. We both have jobs, especially me, that I have the ability to make arrangements when I need to. So opening our home to a child that might need some special needs was visible for us. So that's what we have. So, but that's us. We kind of have to decide. Each couple needs to really decide, what they can take in. And
we read a book, and it talked about what is your purpose in life, and in that book it talks about what do you burn for. What issue is it that really set you on fire and get you motivated. And we found that it's kids, it's teenagers, especially teenagers, that get us motivated and encourages us to want to help them.
As a foster parent, you have the opportunity to share your passions and interests and enrich your own life as well as that of a child.
The most rewarding part of this whole journey really is the love that the kids give back. And their little faces, for example, our current children are being from a different country. They haven't seen so much of the U.S. as far as the technology, and it's like all new to them. It's like everything that they see and experience is new.
Being a foster family is truly one of the most rewarding things you can do for a child in need.
Everybody has a need to be connected and to have a sense of belonging and to be nurtured. It's human nature. And so when we remove children from their families of origin, we want them to remain connected to their families, but we also want them to be connected to other people who can love them, and that's okay for people to fill their hearts with love for many people. So we want foster families to know that they can love these children and they can connect with the birth family, and in the end the child will benefit.
It's great that you have an interest, and we really appreciate you being here. And certainly your interest and your love and your nurturance is a very big piece of what needs to happen. The other large component is commitment. And so we're really appreciating that you're giving this some thought and weighing if this is really right for you. Because what these children need is for someone to stick with them through thick and thin, through the good times and the bad times. And having been traumatized for the mere fact of being removed from their parents, let alone the trauma they may have endured in their family setting, to lose another family is another layer of trauma. And the more trauma a child experiences, the more it comes out in their behaviors. And the more it comes out in their behaviors, the more difficult it is to keep them in a family setting. So it really is a big decision, and we appreciate the time you're taking to make it.
What they want is consistency and love. Just to care for them, to be on their team, even when they're not on their team, and just to be there for them. And they will test you. Certainly just like anyone else's children will test their parents, they'll test you just to make sure that you're there. But they are, through the realm of all children, that's what these kids are.
I think part of also what makes them unique is that they have undiscovered talents, they have undiscovered desires and ambitions. And so bringing that out of a child is sometimes a really fulfilling thing. And you never know where it's going to take you.
Well, there's so many children that are in need of a home that if you have that nurturing in you and you feel that you can guide a child until they can either return home or be adopted, then you can give it a try.
Now that we've heard from the adults who have dedicated their lives to some very special children, let's hear from some of those kids. My name is Cynthia Wells, a social services specialist and trainer with the Department of Family Services. Today we have Tam and Nyrisha, Janelle, and Michaela here with us to share their experiences. I want to thank all of you for being here with me today and sharing your experiences. I want to ask you first, Tam, after you were separated from your family and also siblings, and you were placed in a foster home, how did that foster home help you feel more a part of that family?
Well, my foster parents, they were very, very kind and generous to me. They were very accepting. They didn't judge me for who I am and what I do as a foster kid, and they simply showed me compassion and love throughout all the years I've been with them, and it just makes me feel like I really belong.
What about you, Michaela?
Well, when I first arrived at my foster care house, I was a little timid. I was confused. I didn't know what to expect from my foster parent because I was a little traumatized by what I was receiving before then. But my foster parent really opened up to me. She told me that she would always love me for who I was, and she wouldn't judge me for who I was in the past. She would accept me as her own child, and I'm very grateful to this day.
Fantastic. Before I leave that question, it's a very important question, so I want to ask if anybody else has anything to add to that.
I'd say yeah, I do. So
Good.
one thing that really stood out to me when I first got to my foster home is the vacations and how much of parent figures they were. Because in my original family, I was more of a parent figure for my siblings rather than being parented. So I really appreciated that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
I would also like to add that I got to meet a lot of other people through foster care. I met a lovely brotherly figure named Joel. He really took care of me. He really understood what I was going through because he too was also in foster care. So we really connected. So not only was my foster parent a very great motherly figure, but I also had a brother there for me.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. What are some of the goals that you have in life? And how has your experience in foster care influenced those goals? Nyrisha, can you speak to that?
Yes. So while in care, some of my goals were to obtain a degree. And being the youngest of 7, and both of my parents had a high school, not even a high school education. My mother had a 7th grade education, and being at least one of 3 individuals from my siblings to be able to graduate from college. And not only to just graduate from college, but to obtain a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling and also a certificate in advanced mental health counseling, which brought me to my current goals, which is to obtain a license for mental health counseling and to eventually open up a transitional home for foster care youth. Individuals or youth right now who's transitioning out of foster care, most of the time they don't have anywhere to go after they reach a certain age. And my experience when I graduated from high school and going to college, once a spring break came or a summer break came, I was going from family to family. So by opening up a transitional home, this would give a youth opportunity to have some place to go and not have to go different places each time they come from break.
Fantastic, and also congratulations on the great work you've done with that.
Thank you.
Guys, anybody else want to talk about your goals? Yes, Janelle.
I would like to talk. So being in foster care in the very beginning, I was really down. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I had little to no motivation to do much. I remember I gained I've lost 70 pounds. Yeah, I was very heavy. I emotionally ate and all that. And having to go through that, it taught me motivation is a really big part in your life and never to let yourself go because there's always a future. So basically, foster care has taught me to want to influence people in their lives and make them feel good, make them know how much motivation can change their lives. Because I know a lot of people think it's cool to be oh, I don't care about this or I don't care about that. And then in the end of all of that, it's actually detrimental to your success. So I would love to influence people positively and make them feel like everything that they are going through is just a little bump in the road and you can definitely be seen after.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Janelle. Michaela, did you have anything to add?
I actually do. Before I was in foster care, I wasn't sure if college was going to be supported through my mother because she was very poor. She didn't really have the money to do a lot. And so when I first arrived in foster care in 8th grade, there was an opportunity for a scholarship at George Mason University to apply for. My foster mother, she took the time and dedication to help me to apply for that. And I was the one to accept the scholarship in 8th grade. So I am very thankful for everything that she has done for me. Now my future goal is to become a chemical and electrical engineer.
Fantastic.
And foster care helps me apply for scholarships to different colleges and programs. I participated in National Student Leadership Conference because of foster care and the time they took to find a scholarship for me and help provide funds for that.
Oh, fantastic. So listen, guys, this is a fun question. I want you to think about it just a second. But could you please describe for me one of your best experiences in foster care? I know you probably had many, but if you could describe for me one of your best experiences, one that really sticks out. Let's start with you, Tam.
One of my best experiences is having, to meet my foster parents for the first time, even though I was shy, They were spectacular. They were awesome. They mean everything to my heart. They didn't treat me like a stranger, but they didn't preach any answers for me as well too, but they guided me to learn for myself and choose my path accordingly. And I always had a sense of helping people, and I always wanted to help people. And my best experience is they always encouraged that. And perhaps one day I will become a foster parent soon.
Fantastic. Marisha?
Just to add on to Tim, becoming a part of a family, that is one of the best experience. Being the youngest of 7 and separating from my siblings at a very early age, and the sense of having a family and actually knowing what the family was very, very hard for me. And being as a parent right now myself and have 2 children, being able to mock what some of my foster parents have instilled in me. And one of the best experiences that I can remember, it was when I first got into foster care, and my social worker, what they call social workers back then, was able to help connect me with my siblings. So although we were spread apart, that social worker was able to connect, make sure that we stayed connected, and he used to take us to, for ice cream, and that was very, very important to me because, that's all I had was my siblings.
Yes, your siblings. Great. Michaela, a great experience?
I've had a lot of great experience through foster care, but one that really stands out to me was the time I built a desk with my foster mom. I know it may seem strange because you think, it should become built, right? But it wasn't. So we stayed up all night working on this desk, and this is where I really connected with my foster parent. I really got to know her, and she took the time to see how I handled situations. I was the one that wanted to build the desk. I was the one that didn't want to wait around for people to come and build it for us. I really wanted to work together with my foster parent to really connect with her and see what she was all about.
Great. Janelle, have anything to add to that one?
Yes, one of the best experiences I've had in foster care, minus my vacations that I go on with my family, minus all those other things, I think it was really important to be able to connect with other foster kids. So my social worker always made it an opportunity for me to meet other people and do workshops and stuff like that. And I think that is a brilliant idea. So every time she had anything any activities that she would like me to go to, I always said yes. So I've been to several foster care workshops and met a lot of foster care professionals, because I think if I hadn't gone there, I wouldn't really know what foster care is about. I wouldn't really want to be an advocate for anyone. I just want to sit there, I guess. So I really found all those workshops and all those other things to learn from were really awesome. There's one that was for relationships and stuff, and I learned a lot because going into foster care, they're toxic relationships. So being into foster care and finally getting into a family and actually knowing what that is was really big for me, and then being able to get the proper tools to actually carry on my other relationships in my life. I thought those were really...
Thank you. We've got a little time left, so there's one last question, and I'd like for everybody to be able to answer it if you could, because it will be so helpful to families that want to become foster adoptive parents. If you could leave one message or give one message to families who are considering doing this, what would you say to them?
I would say that, first of all, I would commend them for actually deciding to become a foster parent, and it is a great honor to be one. And I must say, one message I would like to give is that do not give up on the foster kid. No matter how hard it seems, you have to be relentless, and you have to be very determined to help your the foster kid. And when I was in, when I was going my first time going to foster care, my world was dull and gray. However, after I met my foster parents and what they've, put me through, I started seeing colors. And it was very, very exciting for the first time. I started seeing colors in my world.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dana. Narisha.
Well, becoming a foster parent, this is a great and unique opportunity for you to be a part of someone else's life and also to make a difference. I always say you never know who you're raising. You can be raising the next president. You could be raising the next best surgeon. So just, again, take that time out to get to know that particular foster care youth that you're raising, because, again, this is a great opportunity to be that person in that youth life to make a difference.
Thank you. Michaela.
So, to all those foster care parents, I would like to say it might seem difficult at first dealing with a child in your house, but deep in their heart, the child feels so much appreciation for you, and they are very grateful for everything that you do for them. From personal experience, I'm very thankful for everything that my foster parent has put me through. She has shown me love, she showed me compassion, and I'm just so thankful for everything.
Thank you. Janelle.
So I'd say just remember that you have another life in your hands, so to take care of that very carefully. I'd also say that whoever comes into your home has been through something, whether it's small or very, very large. Just realize that they're still a child, and everything that they're doing is off of what they've known. Because I know when I got into foster care personally, my body was already in survival mode, I already was doing what I felt like was necessary. I had a huge defense mechanism up, and I was trying to protect myself from being hurt, even though not even noticing that no one was trying to hurt me. So I think they should always keep that into consideration, and remember that not every child is going to be very emotionally damaged, but there are cases where there are, so just take your time and remember there's another life in your hands. It's a big responsibility to be a parent.
Thank you so much, Janelle. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Perfect. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. So let's go over the folder that you have in front of you. Let's start by really talking about what foster care and adoption is in Fairfax County. So our number one goal is to reunify. We want families to come back together. We want those children who have been removed to go back home to mom and dad. That's our number one priority. So foster care really is meant to be a temporary way in which we can care for those children while their parents are receiving services so that we can mend and fix the things that led to the family being separated in the first place. Temporary is a relative term because it is a legal process. So temporary could mean a few months or it could mean up to 2 years, depending on how long that legal process takes. Throughout the time that a child comes into care, we look for relatives. That could be a biological relative, or it could be what we call fictive kin. So if the biological family has, mom's best friend, or the neighbor who has been there since the child was born, it's kind of like a relative. We would also look at that person as a possible provider. So when the child comes into care, we will first and foremost look for relatives. Hopefully, if those relatives want to take care of the child, children grow best when they're in the family of origin, so we place with that relative. If that's not an option, the children will have to come into foster care, and that's when we need our foster parents. So it's meant to be temporary. Number one reason is to reunify the family. But it doesn't always work that way. So let's look at the sheet where you have all of the statistics in your packet. And this really gives you an idea of the children who are in care right now. So you see that there's 220 children in care. That is pretty average. We usually hover in the 200 number. So 210, 190, but we really oscillate in those numbers. All of those children right now are placed in a home with a foster family. Every child who comes into care, the day they come into care, they will be in a foster family that evening, okay? So if you look at these numbers, you'll see we have pretty even numbers between boys and girls. Usually it's closer to 49 to 50%. The bar numbers at the bottom, that gives you an idea of the age groups where we need the most help caring for children. And if you look at the far right of that bar, you'll see that most of the kids who need help are teenagers. In fact, it's about 54% of the children who are in care right now are over the age of 12 and above. And it's unfortunate, but that is the highest age that we have. So when prospective parents come to us, we always say, are you interested in caring for teenagers? It's a difficult age, but it's the age where they need the most guidance. So you'll see that breakdown of ages here. You'll also see that there is a very high number for children under 2. And that can be a little deceiving because we do have babies who come into care, but not all those babies stay in care. And the reason is when a child comes into foster care, there's what's called a 5-day hearing, where after the child came into care, we go back to the judge 5 days later. And we have to make our case and say, these are the reasons why this child must stay in foster care. If we succeed at making our case, that child will remain in foster care until there's a safe way to return home. When there are babies in the middle, sometimes the judges are less likely to keep them in foster care right away because they're teeny tiny newborns. And so they want to give the mom and dad a chance to maybe fix things. So a lot of these babies that you see here under 2 actually come into care but return home at that 5-day hearing. A lot of them stay, but a lot of them do go home. So if you look at the bubbles here, you're going to see some percentages. You'll see that about 30% of the children who were in care up until a few months ago returned home, which is great. That's our number one goal. So they went back to mom and dad. 15% we were able to transfer custody to a relative. That means that once they went through that entire process, that legal process, and the parents lost their parental rights, we were able to identify a relative who was willing and able to take care of that child. So we transferred custody to that relative. So they did not go home, they went to a relative. You'll see that 27% were adopted. We usually look to the current foster family and we ask that foster family they would like to adopt a child. Because obviously that child has been there for months, maybe a couple of years, so it makes sense that that would be the first choice. It would be an easier transition for the child and for the family. If that family, for whatever reason, is not interested in adopting that child, maybe they just want to foster, they don't want to adopt, then we look into our current pool of foster parents who have at some point expressed the desire to adopt, and we will look to which family is the best match for that child. And we'll try to make a match that way. So the way we see adoption is a service that we provide the child only when the child needs it. So difference, and this is a misconception because the name of our program is foster care and adoption. So a lot of people think they can come to us and directly adopt, and that's not how it works. So we provide that service to the child when the parental rights have been terminated. So it could be 2 years down the road. And now we have to figure out which family can adopt the child. If you go to an adoption agency, parents usually go and say, well, I would like a child of this age, this gender, and this specific background characteristics. And then that agency is going to match you with the profile of the child that you want, because you are the client. In our case, the child is our client. So we are not looking for what the family is looking for. We're looking for the best family that can care for the challenges that that child may bring with him or her. Because something very important to think about when you're fostering is all of the children who are in care are traumatized children. For the mere fact that they were just removed from mom and dad, from everything they know, that's a trauma in itself. But the reasons why we remove are because abuse and or neglect. So in addition to being removed from home, now you have the trauma of whatever else was happening that led to the separation of that family. So our children come with challenges. Sometimes they're emotional challenges, sometimes they're behavioral challenges, sometimes they're both. So it's something to think about. That's why sometimes it's difficult, it's challenging for us to match a family with a child who's ready to be adopted. That's why we have to find the right family, the right match for that kid so that they can take care of that child. Okay? And then you'll see that there is a 24% bubble on this side, and that is because we have a lot of young adults who obviously they come as teens, and by the time that legal process works itself out, now they're 18. It used to be years ago that they were on their own after 18. They aged out. That's where the term came from. But a few years ago, Virginia started a new program that's called Fostering Futures, in which once the child in foster care turns 18 years of age, they're an adult. They're a legal adult, so they have the choice to sign themselves up for the program, which means that they can continue to receive the same services, the same benefits that they're receiving as under 18 children, and they can get that until the age of 24. We continue to provide for them, we continue to care for them, we continue to actually add some more things like vocational training, life skill sessions, anything that they can use in order to be launched into adulthood. We even help with housing if that's something that they need. So that's where the 23% comes from. Any questions about this? Great, okay. So let's go forth with your sheet. Let's look at this one, this flow chart in your packet. This one actually is going to walk you through the process from today to if you wanted to become a foster parent, what are the steps that you need to complete in order to be certified? And you're actually doing information meeting, which is the first thing. All of our prospective parents are required to attend one of these meetings to learn more about our program. So if you think you might be interested, then you want to make sure that you signed my sheet over there, because it could be that you call tomorrow, it could be that you call a year or 2 years from now, and you can always say, you know what, I was at that information meeting at this place, at this date. We can always look back to our records, and if you did that, then that's one less thing for you to do. So you do this. If after today you want to learn more about the process, you want to continue forth, then we move on to the next piece. In your packet, you have this form. It's called a registration form. Getting this to me, either by mail, by email, giving it to me in person, faxing over to our office, this is the signal that you would like to continue with the process. So that will be that for that number 2 bubble. Once I get this from you, then I can give you a call and we can go over the registration form. I can answer more questions. I might have some questions about what you wrote, so we have a phone discussion. If after that phone conversation you're still interested in the program, you still think that fostering is a good match for you, then we move forward to the initial home visit. This home visit is for me to be able to come to your home to see if there's space for the child or the children that you want to care for. Sometimes we have wonderful, well-meaning families who want to care for children, but they don't have enough space in their home to care for them. So in the county, in the state really, we are required to have every child have their own space. They can share rooms with another child of the same gender, and it's not too far difference in age, maybe 2 or 3 years difference, but no more. But everybody has to have their own bed. And so those are the things that I need to assess when I come to the home visit. Also to make sure that we discuss safety. You know, do you have fire extinguishers and smoke alarms and things like that? And of course, to go over more questions that you may have. I always bring a packet of the information that you would have to go over and is required as part of the process, which elicits a lot of questions. You know, some of the things that we do are homeworks and backgrounds, and some of that you heard in the video. But I bring the packet that you would need to go through if you move forward with the process. So, if after that home visit, you say that you're still interested in the process, it's still like a good fit for you and your family, then we invite you to training. And in the video, it said that it was about 30 hours of training. It actually is now 44 hours. And the reason is that the curriculum, which is mandated by the state, used to be 30 hours because you were in a classroom for 30 hours. It used to be 4 evenings and 2 full Saturdays. And the state changed that to a hybrid. The curriculum is the same, but now they do it online and in person. So you still have 5 evenings of classroom training in the evening, 6:30 to 9:30, 5 evenings over 5 weeks. But then before each session, you have an online training that you take. It's about 3 hours of online classes, and then you go in person to your class. And you don't repeat what you just learned online. We actually build on the information you learned online. So we invite you to training. You go to this training for 5 weeks, and then we assign 5 weeks, but it's just 1 night per week. We assign you one of our specialists who's going to do your home study. And a home study is really a family assessment. It's us getting to know you, you getting to know us. And that's when all that packet, that information that I gave you on that initial visit, that's when we're going to do background checks, questionnaires, biographies, all these other things that you need to get through. That takes at least 3 meetings at your home. Usually it's about 5, an average, but the state requires a minimum of 3. That process can take weeks and months. It really depends on your availability, how quickly we can meet, how quickly you can get all that paperwork done. And once we do all of that, then we certify you as a foster parent, and you can start fostering. A lot of families ask, how long is it going to take from tonight or today to that certification and waiting for a child? And that could be anywhere from 4 to 6 months, just because it's a process that takes time. And we don't know when we'll be able to get you into the training. So I would say 4 to 6 times is a safe number. How quickly you start fostering after you're certified really depends on the information, a lot of the information that you gave us originally. Because here we're going to ask you, so what's the age of the children you want to care for? Is there a restriction on the gender that you want to care for? Is there a restriction on the types of challenges that you feel comfortable caring for? So the broader, the wider that range is, the easier it is for us to match you with the child as soon as you're certified. But if you're very narrow, it makes it challenging. So if you say something like, I only want to foster a girl that is 5 to 7 years old and only with a learning disability, that is very narrow, that's very specific. So you could go months or a year waiting and you wouldn't be matched. If you are broader in the child you want to care for, then it's easier for us to match you, especially if you say, I'm willing to take care of teenagers. Sometimes, it will be the same day that you're certified, you'll be matched with somebody, or within a week you'll be matched, because the teenagers come into the system very, very quickly. Do you have any questions so far? Well, the Kinship Institute is a little bit different, because those are the families who are caring for their loved ones, but they're not in foster care. So when you're in foster care, you receive a set of benefits from the county because you're fostering. If you are taking care of your child as a relative, you're a king, then you lose some of those benefits. Even if you place them with the family? Once you're placed with them, it really is up to the family. Sometimes, that's a great question, sometimes families choose to become foster parents. And they go through this process and they become certified as foster parents so they can take care of their relative and still receive all of the benefits that come from the county. If they don't, it's considered a kinship. Right. If they choose not to be certified as a foster parent and they say, you know what, I just want custody, I want you out of my life, which, a lot of people don't want to deal with the county and with the system. That's possible. That's when we transfer custody to that relative, but then they don't get the benefits. And that's why the Kinship Institute was created, because there's no official benefit. They can have certain kind of services to help the family members. Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you. Yeah. Unfortunately not. And that's why we do that first home visit. We want to make sure before we go any further with the process that you already have extra space in the home for foster children. So we're not able to help with housing. No, this is just how the statistics are kept. They actually go up to 24 because of the program, the Fostering Futures program. So we have them up until 24 because now we have that Fostering Futures program, so they're really under the foster care program. But at 18, they have to make that choice if they want to remain or not. If the foster, yeah, at that point is the choice of the family, because the 18-year-old has signed up himself or herself for Fostering Futures, so now they're receiving services, right? At that point, if that child has been there for a long time, there's an emotional bond with the foster family. So the foster family often says, just stay. You know, we'll continue to support and help you, just stay. And sometimes they'll say, it's time to go, or the child may not want to stay. In those instances, we help that young adult finding housing. Sometimes they room with somebody else. We rent an apartment for them and maybe another young adult who's in that program. Sometimes they're buildings, sometimes they're communal homes. It varies, but we help them find housing. But if they want to stay with the foster family and the foster family wants them to stay, they stay in that unit. No, because they would legally not be children at that point. So we can only remove from home while they're legally children. Okay, that's a great question. So in a broad term, it's most of the time, 99% of the time, unfortunately, is because abuse or neglect. That sometimes comes from maybe neighbors calling in and say, I've noticed that this child is not cared for, or I've heard the child being hurt by their parents, or I hear mom and dad arguing all the time and they're fighting. I'm concerned about the child's safety. A lot of the times during the school year, it will be the teachers. They will say, well, this child comes to the school really neglected and undressed, not appropriately for the weather, or they come in dirty, or they come in really hungry. Sometimes they come in with a bruise or something that shows that they're being hurt in some way. So it is mostly because of the community calling Child Protective Services or the schools calling Child Protective Services. And that's how we get involved. Does that kind of address it? Or sometimes that is the case. Sometimes it is that they have been under our radar, and it may not be until they're older that they're really speaking up about what's happening. If you are being in an abusive environment and you're little, you're just afraid to speak up. You're afraid, and if you don't have bruises or anything that shows the world that you're being hurt, and you don't speak up, and it goes unnoticed. And a lot of the time, it is until they're older that they start confiding in friends or teachers or the community that it comes up. So let's go over, and I'm not going to go over the entire booklet. You have one of these in your packet. This, after you read it, and if you send me your registration form, after you read this, usually this is where the questions come from. Can you clarify this, or what about that? I like to focus in number 8 because I think it's relevant, page 8, because it talks about some of the benefits that we provide our foster parents as a way to support you fostering, because it can be very challenging. So one of the things that we do is we provide a reimbursement for room and board. We don't call it a payment, we don't call it a stipend, because we know that just by having somebody extra in the home, you're going to have extra expenses. Food, heating, whatever it is, utilities in general. So we pay, there's a table depending on the age of the child, but that reimbursement ranges from $450 to $725 per month. And so you receive that as a way of helping you with all the expenses. In addition to that, we take care of anything that's school related. If the child needs care before and after school because you're at work, we pay for child care. If the child needs tutoring, we pay for that. If the child needs summer school, we pay for that. If those older children, those teens need, let's say the school is going on a class trip or anything that's school related, we pay for that. If they want to join a club or a sport and they need uniforms and registration fees, we pay for that. Anything that is medical or dental, we pay for it as they become eligible for Medicaid, so we cover their medical and the dental expenses. If they, once they're in your home, they decide they want to take up an instrument or take a specific class, we pay for that as well. And And counseling, that would be the only other thing. Counseling is the other thing that we pay for. The other question that usually comes up is the school. So we are mandated to keep the children who come into care in their home school, because that's probably the only constant they're going to have once they're in foster care, because they're moving out of the neighborhood. So the school decides whether that child can stay in their home school or if they have to be moved to the district of the foster parent. And that move is only made when there's a safety concern from the school for the child. So a good example is if the parents are fighting custody, the biological parents are fighting custody, and the school feels that one of those parents might want to go to school and take the child, that might be a reason for them to decide that the child is best going into another district where the foster parent lives. But most of the time, they do stay in their home school. So if that happens, then we ask our foster parents to help us with transportation and take the child to the new school. But if that's too far off your regular route and you can't detour before, then we have a transportation budget and a transportation vendor that helps us transporting the kids to and from school and back home. Okay? Any questions so far? Nothing. Okay. Well, those are the basic things that I wanted to touch on today. If you have any questions, please take my card. You can email me, you can call me anytime. I will be happy to answer any more questions you have. If you want to move forward, you can, again, just make sure you get this form to me, and the next step will be me calling you, and we can go from there. All right? Yes and no. We don't specifically handle those cases, but we often have children who come into care who are undocumented, or they don't have an adult to take care of them. Maybe they came and that adult has been deported and now they're without that adult. That's when we get them, because now they need a place to stay. That's how they come to the attention of our... So that's a request. If you want to, yeah, if you just want to work with the undocumented youth, yes. And well, actually the registration will ask you, one of the things will say, are you interested in caring for children who are undocumented? And that's for two reasons. One is because we want to know if you want to work with that population, but two is because we live in this area and so many people who live here have clearances, and they, as much as they want to work with those children, they may not be able to. So when we're doing that matching process of foster parent and child, we want to know, is the foster parent able to care for a child who is not documented? But yes, you can also request to just work with them. If the child's in care, it used to be long ago that if the child did not have any other relatives, right, and they were in the foster care, and we want that child to, becomes available for adoption, we were able to work through that legally. It is no longer an easy option anymore, just given the new socio-political environment. Yes. So we're always going to try to go with the family first. Unless there is a risk to the child, we're always going to prefer family first. If the child is 18, of course, they can make that choice on their own. But when they're under 18, and if there's not a relative around, then we're going to do visits. We're going to have a few families who we think will be the best match. And then that child's going to have visits with those families to see if that child feels comfortable with those prospective adoptive families. The adoption process is long because we want to make sure that not only the family feels that child is a good addition to their dynamic in their family, but we also want to make sure that child feels comfortable and he or she feels that they can eventually really become part of that unit. So it's a long process, but it's a matching process. Sometimes, the family steps back. Sometimes the child says, that's not a good match for me, and then we start all over again. But if there is a family member, we usually go with the family member first. Because the system is now designed that way. The system now says that by 12 months, we should have a very clear view of which route we're going. Are the parents really doing what they're supposed to, and we're really going to work hard to reunify? Or we're going to say, it's been 12 months, mom and dad have really not done what they're supposed to do. In fact, they're going backwards. And maybe at that time we're saying, it looks like we're going to go this other route where we might need to look for an adoptive family. So by 12 months, we should have a better idea, and the goal is that by 2 years, it should be we should find permanency, which the child is with a permanent home. That's what the law says now we should do. Sometimes it's a little longer just because of the way court works, but 2 years is the top. It used to be many, many years before. The child could be in care for 4 or 5 years, which is why the law has changed. When a child is removed by Child Protective Services, that child is in a home that evening, one of our foster homes. That's why we're always searching, trying to certify as many families as possible, because we need to have lots of families to choose from, because the county is so large, and we want to keep them near their home. And so whoever comes in care today will be in one of our homes tonight. No, actually, no, that's a misconception. It's not parenting per se. And we have a lot of parents, prospective parents, who have never parented before. But the training is not about parenting. The training is about how do you care for a child that's not your own and has experienced this very traumatic experience of being removed from their home, being removed from their parents, and who has experienced some kind of abuse or neglect themselves. So it teaches you specifically how to care for the children who've been traumatized. So it's not a parenting class. It's not mandatory. If they need it, they receive it. Obviously, they're already traumatized from being in care, so we're always going to try to get them to engage in therapy. Sometimes they might not want to go. They might not be willing to go into therapy, but we're always going to encourage it, because children who've been traumatized benefit from that. Sure. Therapeutic foster care agencies, I guess the best way to look at it is that they're a private agency and we are a public agency. So we are funded by the county. We are a county agency. We respond and owe things to the county and our residents. The TFCs is, think of an adoption agency with just private adoptions, but they do that in foster care. So they train their own parents, they certify their own parents, and they work almost as a vendor to the public agencies. So if, let's say, a child is removed down the street today, and I don't have any foster families in this area, the nearest one is maybe in Reston. That's not very convenient. Or we have families here, but none of those families are willing to take care of a child with the specific challenges that this child has. But a therapeutic foster home, that agency, might have parents who are willing to take care of those characteristics, that profile, and they are in this area. So in those instances, we work together. So they would be sort of like a vendor for the county, because it would be a better match for that child, because we weren't able to match that child with one of our county foster parents. So that's a better way to look. So but there's an agency. They're completely separate from us, but we sometimes do work together. No, thank you for asking. Yeah. I will be happy to come back, and if you have any questions, email me. I'll be happy to respond and answer your questions. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.